Part 2. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 11. Chapter 11 Pretending to be harmonious. An old Chinese doctor can't just go and see something. After separated from her aunt at the intersection, Zhang Lingzi estimated her physical limit and kept walking for a while, then wiped the sweat from her face and returned to the country villa. As soon as he entered the door, he saw Tong Yu waiting in the living room. Sister Tong. The words Tong Yu was about to say were suppressed in her throat when she saw Zhang Lingzi, whose hair on both sides of her face had become wet into strands, and immediately poured a glass of water and handed it over. Even if you want to sharpen your skills before the battle, you won't work so hard. What if you fall down before the show starts? Zhang Lingzi took the water glass and took a sip. After hearing this, he swallowed a sip of water and replied, I have a sense of propriety. She would never make fun of her body. Tong Yu was silent for 2 seconds and then took a breath. Anyway, just take it easy and don't worry about me leaving. Don't forget that Zheng Zheng is watching over you for me. After giving some careful instructions, Tong Yu looked down at her watch and stood up. It's almost time. I'm leaving now. No need to send me off. The other guests should be getting up soon. You should go back to the room and wash up, change your clothes. Zhang Lingzi sent the person to the door of the small villa, waved goodbye and watched Tong Yu get into the car, then turned and returned to the room. I took a quick shower, changed my clothes, and put on some light makeup, mainly to cover up my pale face and lips. Hearing the voices of other guests talking in the corridor outside, he got up and went over to open the door. In the corridor, Shiman and Suyin were walking side by side toward the living room. When they heard the door open, they subconsciously turned their heads and glanced. When they saw Zhang Lingzi going out, surprise flashed across their faces. Of the 4 female guests in the villa, when it comes to appearance, no matter how unwilling they are, they have to admit that Zhang Lingzi is the well-deserved number 1. Her face is delicate and beautiful. Even if she wears heavy makeup, she looks stunning, but if she wears light makeup, she looks even more delicate. Even a high school student would doubt her. They still remember the set of stills that this person made the most out of last year, in which Zhang Lingzi played a high school girl in school uniform. As soon as it was circulated on the internet, she was rated as a campus goddess by thousands of viewers. I don't know how many teenagers and girls used it as a photo on their mobile phones and computers. Screensaver. It's a pity that the TV series was aired later. As stunning as the stills were, his acting skills in the series were just as eye-catching. Because of this wide-ranging comparison, a certain person seems to have been on the hot search for 2 days. In the end, it can be said to be a mixed bag of praise and praise. Zhang Lingzi came to record the show before. Every time she started recording, she put on heavy makeup. It looked good and stunning enough, but it didn't match the tone of their slow variety show. It even took over the show. It didn't look like she was doing it every day. Lin Suifei, who wears both clear and light makeup, looks comfortable. They thought they would see Zhang Lingzi with heavy makeup today, but what they didn't expect was a face with only a little lipstick and blush. The whole face is white and rosy, looking clear and delicate. Coupled with the pair of eyes that seem to have faded away from impetuousness and become clearer and more energetic, I have to say that they are really eye-catching. Teacher Shi, Teacher Su, morning. Shiman reacted faster. She recovered from her surprise and nodded slightly. Morning. Thinking of the camera she just spotted in the corridor, she said again, Xiao 11 got up very early today. Fortunately, after all, the day's plan lies in the morning. Suyin pursed her lips and smiled and said, Shuefei should be up soon, but that guy from Kaiwan probably secretly played games again last night. Let's call him after we finish breakfast and let him sleep more. Zhang Lingzi looked at the 2 seniors in the industry in front of her who had changed their quiet and indifferent attitude yesterday, and raised her eyebrows invisibly. As expected, in front of the camera, No matter what the relationship is in private, you have to put on a harmonious attitude. She is familiar with this skill. In her previous life, when she was in power, there were people in the court that she disliked. After all, everyone may have problems, big or small. The most minor ones were lack of hygiene at best, and the most serious ones were afraid of not condoning the murders and arson of the people under her command. But as long as the person has enough ability and can be used by her, she can still call her a lover. Of course, if her bottom line is really violated in the end, settling accounts after the fall is also her specialty. The three of them walked to the living room chatting and laughing. Breakfast was already set on the dining table next to them. In addition to breakfast, it also comes with a task card sent by the program team. Shiman picked up the task card and read, "Today's tasks are, 1. Climb Zyakui mountain and take a group photo. Note, no one should be missing. 2. Camp at the foot of the mountain. Each person needs to prepare a piece of food. Note, no one is allowed. Ask others for help. Xiaokuishan, it's okay, not too high, but I need to change clothes and shoes after dinner later. The difficult thing is food. What should I prepare to eat?" After the two exchanged words, they glanced at Zhang Lingzi, who was standing quietly aside without speaking. "Why don't we discuss this together again?" Zhang Lingzi was looking in the direction of the kitchen. The guests rarely cook 3 meals a day, and the frequency of use of the kitchen is naturally pitifully low, so the ingredients can be described as scarce. Facing the gazes of the two people in front of me, I'm wondering where the ingredients come from. Shiman and Suyin were reminded of this and immediately realized the problem. Suyin complained in a low voice, "The program team is so inhumane. If we don't have the ingredients, do we have to go to the villagers to buy them ourselves?" "It's not necessary." Zhang Lingzi took the task card that Shiman had just put back on the table and turned it over to the other side. She saw it clearly said, "Lucky food cards will drop on the way up the mountain. You can use the food cards to redeem the corresponding food. If you don't have an ingredient card, you need to find a way to prepare it yourself." Shiman snorted softly. Sure enough, it's still the program team's usual tone. "Are there any new tasks, Sister Manman?" Lin Suifei covered her mouth and let out a delicate yawn and walked from the bedroom. She noticed that the task card was put back again. She just picked it up and was about to read it. When her eyes glanced to the side, she was stunned. She resisted the urge to frown and quickly took a look at Zhang Lingzi's drastically changed makeup and outfit today. It's the transition between spring and summer. Although the temperature in the mountains is a bit low, she still brought a lot of pretty little skirts with her this time. Today she is wearing a peach pink one. It just so happened that Zhang Lingzi also wore a light pink puff-sleeved shirt on her upper body, coupled with matching light makeup. Even though it was not as eye-catching as the little skirt she was wearing, with the same style, whoever looked better would naturally have the advantage. By looking at the task card, Lin Suifei lowered her head and bit her lip. She couldn't go back to the house to change at this time. After reading the contents on the task card, she breathed a sigh of relief. "Since I have to climb a mountain, I will definitely need to change my skirt later. This is the only time that we need to be in the same frame for breakfast. She can bear it." Shiman patted Lin Suifei on the shoulder and said, "Let's all sit down and eat first." The portion set aside for Zhang Kaiwan was first, and the four of them sat down on one side and started eating breakfast. Lin Suifei didn't want to sit with Zhang Lingzi this time, so she deliberately sat between Shiman and Suyin. But in this way, she and Zhang Lingzi were facing each other, and they could see each other eating when they looked up. After drinking less than half of the bowl of porridge, Lin Suifei couldn't help but look up and look across again. She doesn't even want to eat now? Does this person even have to pretend to eat? It's just a breakfast. Why are you pretending to be elegant and noble when you have nothing to do? End of this chapter. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, X Press 11. Chapter 12. Chapter 12. Don't believe it or deny it. I'm going to wake up John Kaiwan. Lin Swifei put down her chopsticks and stood up, stepping on her small leather shoes, and quickly disappeared from the restaurant's camera range. Going to the door of John Kaiwan's bedroom, he knocked a few times and got a somewhat nasal response from inside. Then he turned back to the door of his room, opened the door and walked in. When I came out again, my whole body had been changed. Pink sportswear, paired with white sneakers, even her hairstyle has been changed into 2 centipede braids hanging on the shoulders, and paired with a sun hat, giving her a fresh and sporty style. Zhang Lingzi also went back to her room to change clothes after eating breakfast. Lu Zhengzheng only brought her 2 sets of sportswear when she came to record the show this time. She was probably worried that she didn't like to wear sportswear. But she quite likes it, it is loose and comfortable to wear. She wore the white one when she went out for a run in the morning. She hasn't washed it yet, so she only has a bright red one. The color is a bit conspicuous, but she has no choice. After making sure that there were no other clothes suitable for hiking in the wardrobe, Zhang Lingzi finally put on this red suit. Before going out, she took a look at the full-length mirror standing by the wall, and had a hunch that she might attract more hatred today. The premonition came true 3 seconds later. She opened the door, and the opposite door opened almost at the same time. She and Lin Swifei just saw each other at a glance. Lin Swifei couldn't help but grind her teeth. I have never felt like now that Zhang Lingzi came to this show just to defeat her. I never imagined that someone would be so suitable for bright red. Zhang Lingzi, dressed in a bright red sportswear, is like a scorching sun at this moment, drying her little pink peach blossom to the point of dying. The two of them walked to the living room one after another. John Kaiwan, who was already sitting at the dining table, looked up when he heard the sound, and his eyes suddenly lit up. Had it not been for the food in his mouth, he would have let out an amazing whistle on the spot. Never thought Zhang Lingzi had surprised him so much before. As for Lin Swifei, who was half a body behind Zhang Lingzi, she was ignored by Huali for 2 seconds before Zhang Kaiwan came to thank her. "Thank you, Sister Swifei, for waking me up." Lin Swifei pulled her lips and forced a smile. "You are already calling me sister. A sister should wake up her brother. Zhang Kaiwan originally wanted you to say you don't have to laugh if you don't want to, but he looked strangely stiff. He noticed the camera on the side and quickly swallowed his words. Lin Swifei walked towards the restaurant, apparently planning to take care of the temporary relationship between siblings. Zhang Lingzi had no such intention, walked to the sofa in the living room and sat down, and took out the mobile phone in her pocket. Lin Swifei sat down and turned around to see that Zhang Lingzi had not followed her. She breathed a sigh of relief and said, "Kaiwan, have you seen today's task card? Look, climbing a mountain is a piece of cake. I'm good at taking photos, but I can't cook. It's okay if I blow up the kitchen. The task card says you cannot ask for help from others." Lin Swifei spread her hands helplessly. "I can't help you this time." Zhang Kaiwan himself is quite optimistic. "It's okay, there will be a road before the car reaches the mountain." Zhang Lingzi listened to the conversation between the two at the dining table and opened a history book she downloaded on her phone on the way here. Find the bookmarked page and continue reading it with interest. She has just seen the history of the Yin dynasty. She had some feelings about the fact that the Dayan dynasty only lasted less than 300 years after she left and was replaced by the new dynasty, but not much. The change of dynasties is very common in history, and even the second generation died. The Dayan dynasty lasted for nearly 500 years, and created 2 prosperous times, which can be regarded as a bright spot in the history books. What made her a little bit difficult to let go was a short biography at the end. The biography of Shen Cheng. That sentence: less than a year after the death of Empress Yuan Zhao, Shen Mocking assisted the new emperor in succeeding to the throne and helped her stabilize the court. She died of illness at home, and a generation of famous ministers followed the empress. Hell follow. The man was in extremely good health. In the early years, he accompanied her on a military expedition as a military advisor. He was even more resilient when fighting against her in the court. When he was an imperial envoy, he even dared to ride a horse for thousands of miles without sleep, just for the sake of peace. Send the evidence of the minister's corruption to her. How could such a person pass away due to illness at the age of 40? This biography must be false. Maybe the man just felt tired and passed away due to illness. In fact, he found a place to live in seclusion and live in the countryside. Asterisk. The imperial capital. Yongzi building, top floor office. Zhu sorted out the documents to be approved today and put them on the large desk in front of him. He looked at his boss, who was holding a pen and concentrating on writing, and hesitated to speak. Say what you want to say. What should you do if you hesitate? Such a boss. I was checking my phone when I was in the bathroom just now, and I happened to see another piece of news about my wife. The tip of the pen paused for a moment, and Shen Yunqing finished writing the next few words. What did she do again? Regarding the program where Madam had an accident, the official blog of the program just posted an update. Madam, she has returned to the program to record again. How is the investigation into the cause of the previous accident going? It's definitely an accident, Madam. Zhu paused at this point, his heart skipping a beat. You really brought it upon yourself. After saying that, he waited with bated breath for his boss's reaction. It's just that the boss's reaction made him a little disappointed. The boss still looked calm and didn't seem to care at all. It was as if his behavior of visiting the hospital directly after getting off the plane 2 days ago was purely his own hallucination. Boss, do you have any other instructions? For example, find 2 bodyguards to send to Madam or something, so that she can stop her in time when she wants to die again. No, you go out. The door of the office was gently closed. Shen Yunqing carefully put away the paper filled with words in front of him, and carefully took out a scroll from the drawer on the right side of the desk. He slowly opened it and looked at the portrait on it for a long time. Then carefully put it back. This is her. Asterisk. Halfway up Xiaoqiu Mountain. Except for Zhang Kaiwen, who still looked energetic, the other 4 female guests were dripping with sweat at the moment. They held their knees and panted heavily regardless of their image. Zhang Lingzi found a shade and sat cross-legged, taking deep breaths as much as possible to adjust her heart rate, while quietly listening to the conversation on the side. I have never felt that Xiaoqiushan is as high as it is today. This is only halfway up the mountain. I feel like I can't hold on any longer. The key is that I didn't see any ingredient cards. I'm tired enough from climbing the mountain, but I also have to look for food cards. Lin Suifei couldn't help but sigh loudly, and swallowed back her words that the program crew is not a good person. Turning his head, he saw Zhang Lingzi sitting cross-legged under the shade of a tree with a rosy face that looked even more gorgeous against the red sportswear. She pursed her lips and said, Zixi is a little quiet today. Weren't you very expressive before? Why are you so quiet now? When Zhang Lingzi's name was called, she opened her eyes and looked up at Lin Suifei. Her peripheral vision just fell on Lin Suifei, and her gaze was blank. Look. What to look at? The top of the head. A few people were standing together to rest, and upon hearing this, they all subconsciously looked up. They saw that the ingredient card they had complained about just now was fixed among the branches. The gleam of white between the green eyes is very conspicuous. But who would have thought that the show crew would be so smart as to put the ingredient cards here? Zhang Kaiwen rubbed his hands and said, I'm good at climbing trees, look at me. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, X. Press 11. Chapter 13. Chapter 13, Give Way to C. 3 minutes later. Looking at John Kaiwan, who slipped down again after climbing less than 2 meters high, everyone at the scene was silent. Well, this is different from the tree I climbed before. The trunk is a bit too slippery. Let me try again. She-Man glanced at John Kaiwan's 10 fingers that had been rubbed red by tree bark. The white brand name sneakers on his feet also had a few black marks that could not be washed away due to severe friction. She couldn't help but speak. Advised, how about forget it and go somewhere else? Before he could say the words there should be more, John Kaiwan's third effort failed. The show team can think of putting the ingredient card on the tree. It doesn't say whether it can be found elsewhere. Whether it can be obtained after finding it is another matter. Suyin finished expressing his opinion and looked around. Hey, where is Xiao 11? Just now, they all looked up and paid close attention to John Kaiwan, who was climbing the tree. In the blink of an eye, how come there was one less person? As soon as he finished speaking, there was a splashing sound from the bushes nearby, and then a bright red figure emerged from the green. The camera also moved over, and the strong contrast between red and green almost made everyone ignore the bamboo that looked like it had just been broken in Zhang Lingzi's hand. Shiman slapped her forehead when she saw the bamboo in Zhang Lingzi's hand. I actually forgot that I could find tools to help. Didn't they see a clump of bamboo on the way here? At that time, everyone was not very tired and took photos in front of the bamboo bushes. Others were also a little annoyed, and Lin Suifei couldn't help biting her back teeth. In this way, the highlight will definitely be on Zhang Lingzi. John Kaiwan will also get a lot of shots with her silly and cute performance just now. Only she, who also cares about the camera, will probably fall to the bottom. The bamboo pole is tough and nearly 2 meters long. Coupled with Zhang Lingzi's own height, the ingredients stuck on the branches less than 4 meters high were released from their confinement and floated down in the wind with a gentle poke. John Kaiwan didn't care that his hands were still stained with dust, and quickly picked it up and said, Sister Lingzi, it's yours. The ingredient card finally fell into Zhang Lingzi's hands, and no one else had any objections. After all, it was Zhang Lingzi who discovered the food jam in the first place, and it was Zhang Lingzi who finally succeeded in getting it. Although John Kaiwan worked hard to stay lonely, he was not happy at all. When he picked up the ingredient card, he quickly glanced at the words on it. This ingredient card can be exchanged for ingredients for making small cakes. It's okay to let him make a vegetable and fruit salad, but leave him alone if he makes a cake. There must be ingredient cards later that are easier to operate. After Shiman and Suyin took turns reading the contents on the ingredient cards while walking, they looked at Zhang Lingzi with a hint of sympathy in their eyes. Cake, the most likely type of food to overturn, and with Zhang Lingzi's skill at making instant noodles, they really didn't dare to expect too much. Zhang Lingzi put away the ingredient cards. She had never eaten cake before, let alone made it, but there was always a first time for everything, so that's not a big deal. The higher you go, the harder it becomes. It's not that the mountain road is getting steeper, but that everyone's energy is almost exhausted. Even the most physically fit photographers were gasping for air and sweating profusely. The frequency of breaks is also becoming more frequent. Fortunately, food cards are being harvested one after another. Every time you harvest one, everyone's spirits will be lifted a little. However, out of the total 5 ingredient cards that have been obtained so far, 4 of them were discovered by Zhang Lingzi first. Even Shiman couldn't help but exclaimed, Xiao 11's eyes are so amazing. Everyone present could tell that these words were not the polite words before. Lin Suifei pinched the ingredient card in her hand and nodded along with some annoyance. Zhang Lingzi also discovered her ingredient card. She wanted to refuse, but everyone else had it. If nothing else happened, this would be the last one, so she could only hold her nose and continue. Hearing Shiman talk about Zhang Lingzi's eyes, she couldn't help but look at those eyes. They were a pair of standard red phoenix eyes, with clear pupils. They were slightly narrowed at the moment, and the ends of the eyes became richer and more flexible. Even if she looked at them with a critical attitude, she couldn't say anything bad about these eyes at this moment. Until those eyes glanced towards her carelessly, Lin Swifei took a step back subconsciously, and her heart beat violently. For a moment, I was attracted by the majestic and unruffled atmosphere. When he reacted, his face felt hot. Fortunately, it was already hot right now, so no matter how red her face was, it wouldn't be noticeable. Until she climbed to the top of the mountain, Lin Swifei couldn't help but remember the look in Zhang Lingzi's eyes just now, and she almost sprained her legs because of her trance. Careful. Looking at the hand that suddenly appeared on her arm to help her, and then looking at the owner of that hand, Lin Swifei thanked her with a complicated mood. During the previous recording of the program, Zhang Lingzi was like a butterfly. She was always present wherever there was a camera. Even if there was no camera for the time being, she would insist on getting in front of the camera. They were all annoyed. I dare you to be the only one in this show. Working hard. This time she didn't see this man leaning towards the camera. He even spoke a lot less, and even said he didn't speak unless necessary. But she found depressingly that Zhang Lingzi did not take the initiative to get in front of the camera, but the surrounding cameras were subconsciously following Zhang Lingzi. Whether it's taking a bamboo pole to get an ingredient card, or finding a hidden ingredient card, or even the person just sitting down to rest, there is a camera to capture that face that shows no flaws at all no matter what angle it is viewed from. Zhang Lingzi did not deliberately move in front of the camera, nor did she deliberately avoid the camera. She was not yet familiar with how to face the camera. Even being the center of attention is beyond her control. She was the center of attention in her previous life. As for discovering ingredient cards, it's all based on experience. She also has a lot of experience in mountain warfare. The staff will definitely leave traces on the way back and forth when they place the food cards. Even if the opponents in the previous life deliberately clean the traces, she will find clues, let alone the traces of rough cleaning. You can see it accurately at a glance. Seeing that other people were about to pass by without knowing it, she had to remind her even if she didn't intend to. Arrived at the top of the mountain, after a short rest to finally recover some of the strength, it was time to take group photos. Originally everyone's plan was that Shiman and Suyin, the two highest-ranking people in the circle, would stand in the middle, and the other three would stand on both sides. Zhang Lingzi was walking to the side consciously, when a hand reached out from the side and pulled her toward the middle. Facing Zhang Lingzi with a surprised look, Shiman smiled and said, "Zioxi made the biggest contribution on this trip to the mountain. Except for Zhang Kaiwan's, Zioxi helped us find all our ingredient cards. I suggest that Zioxi stand on the side position C, do you have any objections?" Suyin smiled and waved her hands. She didn't care about this. It was just a position and it wouldn't affect her at all. Zhang Kaiwan happily had no objection. The smile on Lin Swifei's face almost couldn't be held back, and she forced herself to nod. It has only been one morning, have you all forgotten how much embarrassment Zhang Lingzi caused everyone and how many problems he left us? Also, in the past few days, what kind of advanced training class did Zhang Lingzi attend, and how did she completely change herself? She also wants to sign up when she goes back. End of this chapter. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 14. Chapter 14. Never fight an unprepared battle. With a click, the five people stood on the top of the mountain with their backs to the rolling green mountains behind them, smiling at the camera. After the staff member in charge of taking pictures made an okay gesture to the guests, he couldn't help but look down at the photos that had just been taken. Before taking the photo, even though Zhang Lingzi was standing in the C position this time, he thought that the one with the stronger aura should be the actress Shiman, followed by Suyin. But now when he looked at the photo, he only had one feeling. It seems that Zhang Lingzi should stand in the center of the crowd. If she is moved to the edge, it will feel awkward. After taking the photo, Lin Suifei almost couldn't wait to leave where she was. Seeing that Zhang Lingzi was still standing in the middle, she was a little jealous and a little sarcastic. She man just gave me a hand, and this person really felt at ease and stood in the middle. He didn't even show any humility and directly let the more famous movie queen and singer accompany him. When the photos are released, she wants to see if Zhang Lingzi will be laughed at again. At least the label of arrogance will definitely be slapped on her. From yesterday's meeting to now, Zhang Lingzi has clearly recognized the other four guests. Shaman She, the actress, and Su Yin, the singer, have been in the entertainment industry for the longest time and have enough seniority to be able to take root and still maintain a certain degree of popularity. They are both human beings who can make no mistakes easily. Lin Suifei's cultivation level is not that good in comparison. She can't hide some small thoughts at all. Compared with the previous two seniors, she still has room for learning. As for Zhang Kaiwen, she can see through it at a glance. Shiman suddenly asked her to stand in the C position when taking pictures just now. Maybe she was really grateful to her for helping to find the ingredient card, but she also wanted to consider her meaning hidden in it. Normal people would usually choose to be humble when encountering this kind of situation. If it were the original person's character, they would definitely accept it without thinking. She was exercising restraint by not grabbing the C position. There was no reason to give it back when others had given it away. However, this time Zhang Lingzi did not follow the normal approach. She has never been someone who is willing to wrong herself. The previous apology was for the original person, and it was also a temporary solution for her. She did nothing wrong this time, and instead helped other guests, so she deserves the C position at all. After taking the photo, Zhang Lingzi was sensitive to the fact that Shiman and Suyin were a little more distant from her. Perhaps her reaction this time, which was no different from the original ones, exceeded their expectations. But she didn't really care. The intimacy in front of the camera is inherently fake. When the recording is over, it is not certain whether we will work together again in the future. Lin Suifei also turned a blind eye with a mocking look in her eyes. As long as this person didn't dance in front of her, she could block any look. It's like she never even read the words on the internet that were criticizing her. As for Zhang Kaiwen, who still looked so careless, he was already cheering that he could finally go down the mountain. The descent down the mountain was fairly easy. It took more than an hour to walk up the mountain and rest. Everyone didn't stop on the way down the mountain. It took less than half an hour to reach the bottom of the mountain in one go. Walking back to the small country villa, none of them even bothered to change their clothes. They all sat on the sofa and didn't want to move. If the staff hadn't rushed us, we would have been able to sit there until lunchtime. Go back to the room to wash up briefly and change into clean clothes. Then come out and exchange the ingredients. Zhang Lingzi received flour, sugar, eggs, cream, fruits and other ingredients for making cakes. Others took their own ingredient cards and received their own ingredients. Just putting it on the table, Zhang Lingzi saw that there were at least twice as many ingredients in front of her as the others, and she couldn't help but pursed her lips. From the looks of it, the food she is going to make next should be the most difficult. Zhang Kaiwen couldn't wait to carry his plate of fruit into the kitchen. He wanted to make fruit salad, which is the simplest thing, and he couldn't wait to show off his skills. Lin Suifei came in next. To make sushi, she had to steam the rice first. The rest could be rolled up and eaten directly, which was pretty simple. Shiman and Suyin then came in together. What they were doing was not difficult. Shiman made sandwiches and Suyin made homemade drinks. They got started quickly after entering the kitchen. It was just that the four people were busy. While Lin Suifei was letting the steamed rice cool, She glanced at the three people who were busy beside her and frowned. Where is Zhang Lingzi? Shiman took out the freshly fried eggs. After hearing the sound, she turned around and looked towards the living room. She saw Zhang Lingzi looking at a lot of ingredients on the coffee table, holding a mobile phone in her hand, and frowning. Lin Suifei looked away, lowered her voice but kept it at a volume that was just right for the radio to receive. Is Zhang Lingzi just trying to mess it up? Even if it doesn't taste good, we all know it's her first time, so she won't say anything. Zhao Hongsheng, who was sitting behind the camera at the moment, put the drinking cup on the table and said, "We are moving to shoot, zoom in and see what Zhang Lingzi is looking at. There has to be a limit to your willfulness. The previous part of the mountain climbing was pretty good, except for the one where you might get scolded when you stand in position C to take pictures. It's only been half a day, but you can't pretend anymore?" Then he thinks a little too highly of this girl. The camera obediently zoomed in, but the moment it was about to focus on the phone screen suddenly went black. Zhang Lingzi looked back at the staff member who quietly came over. She didn't say a word, but the staff member subconsciously took 2 steps back, and she didn't dare to turn on the phone again. When Zhang Lingzi walked to the kitchen with the ingredients on the table, he patted his heart with a free hand and breathed a sigh of relief. "Oh my God, I scared him to death." In the kitchen, seeing Zhang Lingzi come in, Lin Suifei, who originally thought she would show off her skills to the end, turned her back to the camera and turned her lips, while speeding up the movements of her hands. She had to finish her work quickly and go out, so she could stay and watch Zhang Lingzi's kitchen bombing show. When she lowered her head and carefully cut a sushi roll and prepared to plate it, she realized that the kitchen was a little quiet. Looking up, he saw Zhang Lingzi opposite, making dough for a cake. Add water, stir, knead the dough, and add ingredients, meticulously. Just looking at it, I feel a little familiar. Until Shiman suddenly said, Xiao 11's technique looks quite professional. Lin Suifei suddenly came back to her senses. As an artist, it was difficult for her to eat cakes and other foods, but she was greedy for this, so she liked to watch short videos of making cakes on her mobile phone. As for Zhang Lingzi's current movements, not only are they exactly the same as those in the short video, they are just copied. The key point is that most people will be in a hurry when they first start, and they will even put the wrong materials or put less materials when they are busy, but Zhang Lingzi gives her the feeling that she has done it thousands of times. You just. Looking at your phone isn't just about watching tutorials on how to make small cakes in the middle of battle, right? No way, right? She would rather believe that Zhang Lingzi had done it before than believe that this person could do it so well the first time. Putting the prepared bread dough into the steaming oven, Zhang Lingzi followed the steps and started to beat the cream in an orderly manner. By the way, she also put some chocolate to relieve the sweetness. She broke Lin Suifei's belief by saying, "It's the first time to make it. Learn from the internet. This is called not fighting an unprepared battle." When he saw with his own eyes a small cake that was no different from what he saw in ordinary videos taking shape under his eyes, and even the decorations on it were perfectly matched, Suyin couldn't help but pinch some leftovers and taste them, and then looked a little complicated. He looked over and said, "Xiao 11, is this really your first time making a cake?" This is so embarrassing for her, who once almost tortured the pastry chef she invited to cry in order to learn how to make cakes. End of this chapter. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 15. Chapter 15. The Born Protagonist. The camping place was chosen at the foot of Xiaoqiui Mountain. There are trees, grass, and a stream. The folding chairs and folding tables they brought were placed, and a few people couldn't wait to sit down and rest. The breeze blows, the leaves above the head rustle, occasionally a bird will land on the branch and chirp a few times, the stream gurgling, the sound of nature pours into the ears, not to mention how pleasant it is. Zhang Lingzi rarely relaxed completely at this moment and didn't think about anything. After a while, she fell asleep on the folding chair. Zhang Kaiwen couldn't sleep, so he simply put on headphones and played a game. When he turned around, he saw a picture of Spring sleeping that could be used in a painting. The movement to get up was subconsciously a little gentler, and he walked lightly to the stream. He noticed that there were fish in the creek when he came over, and wanted to try to catch them with his own hands. Although Zhang Lingzi was half asleep, the slight movement beside her still made her slightly raise her eyes. She watched Zhang Kaiwen walk to the creek, took off her shoes and went into the water to catch fish, and then closed them again. It was noon in the blink of an eye after closing their eyes to relax. The breeze brought the aroma of people cooking nearby, and their stomachs began to sing about the empty city plan. Only then did a few people slowly wake up. Get up and put the food on the table. Zhang Lingzi first took a piece of small cake she made by herself. Soft, sweet, and slightly bitter butter, soft bread dough, and some chopped fruit pieces in the middle. After taking one bite, even she herself couldn't help but light up. She loves to eat. In her previous life, the imperial dining room was filled with famous chefs from all over Dayan. She was happy to taste the delicious and novel food as long as it was not poisonous. But this was the first time she had tasted this kind of food. It can be seen that after more than 1,000 years, the food on this land has become many times richer. It would be great if I could taste them one by one. Although the cake is delicious, except for Zhang Lingzi and Zhang Kaiwen, the other three people only tasted it. Shi Man's sandwich was eaten to the last bit first, and then Zhang Lingzi's small cake was rounded by Zhang Kaiwen, who was not afraid of getting fat. Lin Suifei looked at the few pieces of sushi left on the folding table and couldn't help but clenched her fists in frustration. Had I known she would have done less. I thought Zhang Lingzi's cake would be a failure. She was afraid that there wouldn't be enough for everyone, and there was too much steamed rice, so she made 2 more portions. Unexpectedly, the finished cake was a success beyond everyone's expectations, and her sushi was the only food left. Doesn't this prove that her sushi, not to mention Shi Man's sandwiches, is not as good as Zhang Lingzi's cakes? In grief and anger, she chose to eat by herself, and then she accidentally overstuffed herself. Zhang Lingzi was a little speechless when she heard a small hiccup from the side. Besides them, there are also filming staff and assistants on standby. It's not good to share the leftover sushi with anyone. Why force yourself to eat it when you are already full? She originally wanted to leave a small piece of cake for Lu Zhengzheng, but Zhang Kaiwen was so generous that she couldn't open her mouth. The camping in the afternoon ended, and the day's program recording also came to an end. Nearly 10 hours of footage was shot in this day, and after post-editing, only less than an hour's worth of footage would be produced. Lu Zhengzheng finally ran to Zhang Lingzi from an area beyond the camera's reach. Thank you for your hard work, Sister Zixi. This day was spent climbing mountains and making cakes. In the past, both were minefields for her own artists. She couldn't help but be worried when watching nearby, for fear that the other party would suddenly turn around and give up the job. Fortunately, Sister Zixi persevered, and not only did she look for ingredient cards, but she also made small cakes, all of which were done beyond her expectations. It's worth a hard work. Unexpectedly, in the studio temporarily rented by the program team, Zhao Hongsheng looked at the material recorded today on the computer in front of him and couldn't help but touch the stubble on his chin. Today's task is indeed more difficult than before. After all, asking female celebrities to climb mountains and cook is something they are not good at. But he mainly targeted Zhang Lingzi. To be precise, today's episode is a test for Zhang Lingzi. If this girl was pretending yesterday, she will definitely show her true colors when faced with this task today. Only if she truly changes her mind will she be able to do her best to complete the task. The reality is, the latter. Moreover, the performance is amazing. Whether it was looking for ingredients cards in the front or making food in the back, if the video hadn't been right in front of him, he couldn't believe it was done by John Lindsay, the little genius, and it was all highlights. At this moment, another picture was sent to the computer. He clicked it subconsciously, and after seeing the content of the photo clearly, he couldn't help but raise his thick black eyebrows. This is a group photo of 5 people on the top of the mountain, which has just been processed. Watching the video before, he already understood the reason why John Lindsay would stand in the C position. This is also the only place where he is a little dissatisfied and will not be humble. But now looking at the photo in front of him, he was a little speechless. Just one sentence that comes to mind: some people, as long as they stand there, whether in the center of the crowd or in the corner, will become the focus of other people's eyes. The natural protagonist is destined not to be a foil. This picture should be the cover picture of this issue. John Lindsay may be scolded again because of this position, but the heat it brings is definitely not small, and he is not guilty. What's more, this photo is really good, it would be a shame not to use it. Asterisk. The physical exertion during the day was not small. After answering the call from Tong Yu, John Lindsay turned off her phone and lay down on the bed. She fell asleep comfortably before 9 o'clock. The 2 bedrooms across the corridor are still brightly lit. John Kaiwan was playing games on his mobile phone when a video from his agent came over. "Say what's going on, I'm playing games, don't let my teammates think I'm cheating." The manager on the opposite side was choked. "I heard Lele say that you climb mountains and swim during the day, and you can actually play games at night. It seems that you have really good energy." "Of course, when I was playing esports, I could stay up for 3 days and 3 nights without sleeping." Okay, let's not talk about your wonderful achievements in the past. I have a variety show here, which I feel is quite suitable for you. I remember you said before that you like different challenges, and this variety show is very different." "What variety show?" "Survival. You have seen this type of foreign program, it is similar to that kind of program." John Kaiwan pointed his finger, and the game character's death screen dimmed. "I read every issue." "Brother Shui, how do you know me so well?" "That's right, who am I, but there's something bad about this variety show." As for John Lindsay, who is filming the show with you now, she will also go. I don't know what the show team is thinking about hiring such a laggard. You have been dragged down by her this time. It's a pity that the contract has been signed, and I can't ask for a replacement. If she is there, will you go?" John Kaiwan smacked his mouth, and his mouth seemed to still smell of the little cake at noon. If Brother Shui had asked this when John Lindsay fell off the cliff and was acting like a monster every day, he would have shaken his head and refused. Even if he was interested, if John Lindsay went to the next program to continue, he would cry if he was involved in it twice in a row. But this time when the other party came back from his injuries and met again, it was as if he was a different person. Thinking that the other party ate 2 bowls of rice like him in order to keep fit, today's mountain climbing not only did not hinder him, but also helped other people. The first time he made a cake, instead of overturning, it tasted great, which shows that the other party is actually quite capable of doing things. These changes made him impulsively nod to the person in the video in front of him. Go. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 16. Chapter 16 New Tasks. If John Kaiwan has changed his mind about John Lindsay's series of changes, then Lin Swifei, who is separated by a wall, is a little worried. John Lindsay had been doing various things before. Although she was impatient to have such a self-centered temporary colleague around her, her ignorance was a perfect foil to her intelligence and generosity, so she could barely tolerate it. But now, the other party has changed. She no longer has to endure Zhang Lingzi, but she feels even more depressed. It happened that she had to endure this depression in front of the camera. Now she was in the bedroom and the camera was turned off. Only then did she dare to call her agent to complain. I even suspect that Zhang Lingzi didn't go back to recuperate, but went to a character training class. This time she comes back as a different person. If Zhang Lingzi heard what she said, she would just say, "Sure enough, the people who know her best, apart from recognized close friends, are enemies." Don't worry, tell me slowly, how will Zhang Lingzi behave after she comes back? Lin Suifei spoke in detail, and suddenly thought of what Zhang Kaiwen asked subconsciously yesterday, "Brother Huang, do you think Zhang Lingzi really has a twin sister? Otherwise, no matter how hard she studies, she will not be able to progress so fast. So big." The other side replied categorically, "Impossible. Zhang Lingzi's family situation is not a secret in the industry. She entered the entertainment industry just to help her family pay off debts. She had a bankrupt father, a mother who was a full-time housewife, and an enterprising woman. The younger brother who has not yet been released from the juvenile detention center definitely does not have any twin sister. Okay, that's what I'm saying. Xuefei, maybe you didn't even notice it yourself, but I can tell that you were affected by Zhang Lingzi, who returned to the show crew again." Lin Suifei couldn't help but hold her breath. "I heard my agent Huang Ji continue to say, it's best for you not to think too much about anything now, and don't care how much Zhang Lingzi has changed and how good her performance is now. Just follow your previous pace, and don't let her put you down because of her. Your originally planned path has also changed. Nowadays, the audience is all sharp-eyed, and they can tell if something is wrong with you. As for Zhang Lingzi, whether she is pretending or she really meets someone, if she wants to pretend, you just have to keep pretending, and there will come a time when you can't stand it anymore." Lin Suifei felt her palms became cold when she heard this. Looking back on her performance in front of the camera that day, she really didn't even reach half of her previous level. Although she didn't want to admit that she was influenced by Zhang Lingzi, who had changed drastically, she had no other explanation. "Okay, Brother Huang, I understand. Don't think too much, go to bed early. Asterisk. It is expected that your waist and legs will be sore when you wake up after a night's sleep." However, Zhang Lingzi did not hesitate. After a while, she got up early and went out for a run just like yesterday. This time the staff of the small villa saw her again. Although they were a little surprised that she could get up, fortunately they were not as surprised as yesterday. After running around on the country road and returning, the villa was still quiet. After she went back to the room to wash up, change clothes and lay back on the bed to rest, there was movement in the corridor outside. Even with makeup on, Shiman could tell that her face was a little tired. As she walked toward the living room, she lightly hammered her lower back with her hand. After looking at Suyin, who was also unable to hide her fatigue, she laughed at herself. "I'm really old. I crawled out yesterday. It's a small hill, and I almost couldn't get up today. I'm the same, my calves are so sore that I don't want to move." The bedroom door opened, and both of them stopped talking and looked over. Shiman looked at the face full of collagen with a complicated mood. "Xiao 11 is up too." Suyin couldn't help but glance at the straight back in front of him. "Xiao 11 looks very energetic." "Teacher Shi, Teacher Su, morning, okay. Let's go and see what tasks the director has assigned us today. Don't make it the same as yesterday, I can't hold it any longer." When we arrived at the restaurant, breakfast was already placed on the dining table that was still empty when we came back from running, along with a task card that was exactly the same as yesterday. Shiman picked it up and read, "Today's task is to bring your mobile phone with you to find and take pictures of the most beautiful scenery in the village. The time ends before the sun sets. After that, the staff of the program team will vote for the one with the most votes one ticket, and the winner will receive a spot as a local publicity ambassador. After reading, she looked at Suyin. They were relieved by the content of the mission. Although they had to walk around and take pictures, they could still take a rest when they were tired. Moreover, this small mountain village was picturesque, and any scenery they took was great. Mainly because of the quota of local public welfare ambassadors. Although there is no pay for making such promotional videos have a positive guiding role and are still very beneficial to artists. If you want to get a spot, you have to shoot well in the next day. Xuefei couldn't get up this time either. Leave the food for them both first. If you can sleep, sleep a little longer. Let's eat first. After breakfast, Zhang Lingzi sat down on the sofa in the living room and began to familiarize herself with the camera function on her mobile phone. She has tried front and rear cameras, portraits, landscapes, delayed wide-angle and so on. The camera on the side also learned the lesson and moved over early to faithfully record all this. Zhao Hongsheng was munching on the buns while watching Zhang Lingzi take pictures with her mobile phone happily. He couldn't help but muttered, "It looks like he has never taken a selfie before." He could remember that this girl used to like all kinds of face-cheating selfies, and the camera had recorded them many times, but it was a pity that her skills were so poor that her face was wasted. When Lin Suifei and Zhang Kaiwen were almost out of the bedroom, they saw three people in the living room who had finished breakfast and were waiting for them. Lin Suifei managed not to look at where Zhang Lingzi was, who could hear clicking sounds from time to time. In the direction of the hotel, he immediately apologized, "I got up late." Shimin smiled and waved her hands, "It's understandable. Everyone was exhausted yesterday. Let's go eat quickly. It will get cold soon." Lin Suifei bit her lip and sat down at the dining table. She was a little annoyed. She should have set an alarm clock before going to bed last night, but Zhang Lingzi actually got up earlier than her. Hold on, don't be influenced by Zhang Lingzi. She finished her breakfast with a little eagerness. After learning the content of today's mission, her eyes suddenly lit up. She considers herself pretty good at taking photos, especially since the winner will have the opportunity to become a local publicity ambassador. She is determined to win. As for Zhang Lingzi, she had secretly logged into her account to see some of this person's selfies. At that angle, if there wasn't a face propped up, it would have been the scene of a car accident. No wonder I just kept clicking. I was practicing my photography skills before the battle. No matter what, she will win today's round. When the accompanying shooting was ready, everyone also brought their mobile phones and prepared to go. Zhang Lingzi turned off the camera on her phone and glanced at Lin Suifei, who was looking confident. "Don't be too obvious about the inevitable victory. It seems that you are very confident in your photography skills." However, although she has just learned how to take pictures, she is not in vain. She has never met anyone who can make her admit defeat in her whole life. After leaving the villa gate, the 5 people immediately divided into 5 groups. Zhang Lingzi walked forward casually with the accompanying photographer behind her. From time to time, I stop and take out my mobile phone to take a picture, sometimes just to take a picture of the clouds in the sky and the falling flowers on the ground. Looking at the accompanying photos behind me, I felt like I was hesitant to speak. Does this mean that you are going to mess it up? Does this guy still remember that he is competing? End of this chapter. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 17. Chapter 17 The Old Man and the Sunset. Until we came to a century-old tree that was extremely lush. Zhang Lingzi just stopped for the first time. Looking at the backs of an old man and a young man under the old tree in front of him. Both of them were wearing white loose-fitting exercise clothes and were in a Tai Chi starting position. The distant view is of white walls and black tiles, the close shot is of lush old trees, and the moving scene is the synchronized movement of two backgrounds under the trees. She took out her mobile phone and carefully took a picture of the first work that was no longer her previous practice. The picture freezes. What Zhang Lingzi didn't expect was that the old man with snow-white hair had very good hearing. As soon as she heard a click, the other person stopped exercising and turned around in the next second. The old man has fair hair and a childish face, and his eyes under the white eyebrows are not cloudy at all. When he looks over, his eyes are clear. While filming on the trip, I was just glanced at, and my hands shook subconsciously, almost losing my grip on the machine in my hand. I have never seen such an energetic old man in this small village before. What kind of luck is this? Zhang Lingzi faced the old man's gaze directly, not to mention that the other party was obviously dissatisfied with being disturbed. Knowing she was in the wrong, she put down her phone and used Tai Chi etiquette to salute. I just offended the old man, the younger generation knows my mistake. Probably seeing that her salute was standard, the old man's expression softened, but his tone was still a little cold when he spoke. What did you just take a picture of? Zhang Lingzi pulled out the photo she had just taken, took a few steps closer and handed it over with both hands, and briefly explained her identity and today's mission. Although it was a pity that this was the most satisfactory photo so far, she still said, "If you are the best, mister, if you don't want to be in the camera, I will delete it now. This photo is all, it's just a back view, not the face." But the machine in the young man's hand. The accompanying photographer quickly moved the machine in his hand to the other side. "Don't worry, old man, we guarantee that we will never have any footage of you without your consent. Okay, let's go and don't disturb us again." Zhang Lingzi took the phone that was handed back, saluted again, and signaled the accompanying photographer to leave with her as soon as possible. "Wait until the two of them have walked some distance away. Grandpa, that sister just now was so beautiful." The old man patted his little grandson on the head. "You are beautiful, but it's a pity that your body is very weak. If you don't take care of your body and take good care of it, your life will be short. Really, what a pity. Of course, if you don't study medicine well, you won't be able to tell now. Don't talk about her anymore, just follow me and continue practicing Tai Chi." Asterisk. The five people hurriedly turned back before the sun set. The lights were turned on in the courtyard of the small villa, and all the staff were present, ready to start voting. Zhang Lingzi uploaded the photos she took to director Zhao Hangshen's mobile phone, then sat down with contestant 11 Jing to wait for the voting to end. The large LCD TV sponsored by the advertiser in the villa was also moved to the yard at this moment. After a while of tinkering by the technicians of the program team, 5 works appeared on the TV screen one after another. The photo is not marked with who took it, which means that the vote can only be based on the work itself. Lin Suifei was originally very confident in her work. She took almost hundreds of photos today, and it took a lot of effort to just pick out the most satisfactory one from the hundreds of photos. But now looking at other works on the TV screen, it seems that they are not bad. The key is that she can't tell which of the other 4 pictures was taken by Zhang Lingzi. When did this person's photography skills improve so much? Shiman and Suyin are okay. Of course they hope they can win, but they can accept losing. They don't have to fight for the public welfare ambassador position. Zhang Kaiwen didn't care about the voting results, he only cared about the dinner later. He was already hungry after wandering around for a day, but he had no snacks to fill his stomach. Except for the 5 guests who were accompanying the photographer and the director Zhao Hongsheng who was responsible for receiving the photos, no one else at the scene knew who took the photos. The photos are now numbered, 1 to 5, corresponding to 5 boxes. Now you can take the ticket in your hand and put it into the corresponding box. After carefully looking at 5 photos, someone finally walked to the ballot box with a vote in his hand. Lin Suifei couldn't help but lean forward slightly, waiting for the ticket to fall into the number 5 ballot box. She couldn't help but purse her lips and look at the number 5 work being displayed on the TV screen again. That photo is the most special of the 5 works. The other 4 are all simple landscapes, including waterfalls, distant mountains, fish swimming in streams, and colorful fallen flowers. But in this one, the subject is not the scenery, but the characters. There are not any handsome guys or beauties, but a few old people with wrinkled faces who are sitting on the pony, chatting and laughing. There is a long winding road behind the old man. At the end of the long road is the orange sunset. The smoke rising from the houses on both sides is also dyed warm orange by the sunset. It makes people feel warm just looking at it, and it brings with it a hint of late life sadness and relief. But to be able to take such a photo, I also knew that it couldn't be Zhang Lingzi and Zhang Kaiwen. If Shiman and Suyin were to lose to one of them, it wouldn't be too uncomfortable. After silently comforting herself, Lin Suifei turned her head and glanced at Zhang Lingzi, who was sitting next to her. She couldn't see her expression clearly under the light, and she didn't feel how excited Zhang Lingzi was. It seemed that her guess was probably correct. There were only about 30 people participating in the voting. It didn't take long before the last person's vote was put into the ballot box. Zhao Hongsheng stood behind the camera. Even if the counting of votes had not started yet, he was more or less sure who the winner was tonight. Under the flickering lights due to unstable voltage, he couldn't help but take a second look at the figure sitting at the guest seat. After receiving the photo, he made sure again and again before finally convincing himself that the owner of work number 5 was the person he felt was least likely to be able to photograph the old man and the sunset. The voting process was also very fast. One person was responsible for singing and the other was responsible for recording. The voting results were announced quickly. Work number 5 won an overwhelming victory with 16 votes, a full 7 votes higher than the second place. Probably she had already guessed the result, and Lin Suifei was still able to accept the result. She pulled out a smile and prepared to congratulate Shiman or Suyin. Unexpectedly, as soon as his eyes turned over, he saw these two people looking towards her and Zhang Lingzi. Lin Suifei's heart suddenly skipped a beat, and an incredible guess flashed through her mind. Soon, the guess came true. Let us congratulate Zhang Lingzi, the photographer of work number 5, and the works of several other teachers are also great. Hand in hand, a heavy hammer came over, not only hitting Lin Suifei's head, but also many staff members' foreheads. When they were voting, none of them thought that the photo taken by Zhang Lingzi was the number 5 photo. It just so happened that it was really her. Shiman paused in clapping, looked at Zhang Lingzi who stood up to accept the congratulations, and took a breath. After confirming that number 5 was not taken by Suyin, she also confirmed that Zhang Kaiwen could not have taken such a delicate work. She thought it was taken by Lin Suifei, and did not expect Zhang Lingzi at all. As a result, reality slapped her in the face again. There has never been a moment so certain as now that Zhang Lingzi is really different from before. End of this chapter. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 18. Chapter 18 Put on a show. Today is the last day of recording for Let's Travel Together. Zhao Hongsheng made a rare appearance on the last day of recording. Instead of taking out his usual task card, he announced in person, "A big car is coming to the village today. Everyone must have seen it, so I went to find out." It was a charity performance performed by the Tan family in the countryside. So, I had an idea. I thought about using the stage provided by them. You can put on a temporary show. I want to repay the warm hospitality of the villagers during this period. What do you think of my proposal? The 5 people who were announced to perform on stage temporarily, not great. Except for Suyin, who is a singer and has many opportunities to perform on stage, the others are all acting and don't really have much experience in performing on stage. The key is that the preparation time is too short, not even enough for rehearsal. But facing Zhao Hangshen's smiling face and the surrounding cameras, even if he wanted to curse in his heart, he still responded with a smile on his face. After lunch, without having time for a lunch break, the five of them hurried to the stage that had just been set up by Tan's class. The owner of the Tan family was ready to welcome early, and the figures of the big stars who could only be seen on television could only be seen on the TV. Even though he did not expect that he would encounter such a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity just by taking the local subsidy to perform in the countryside. When director Zhao came to him and asked to use the stage to film a variety show, he agreed without even thinking about it. Although his Tan family troupe is also a folk art troupe with formal documents, it usually performs in various towns and villages with subsidies and earns hard money just like now. It was a rare opportunity to be on a TV show, so he was stupid to refuse it. Please invite some teachers in, please come in quickly, because we have just started to clean up, and the backstage is a bit messy, so please don't be surprised. Zhang Lingzi looked at the stage in front of her that was built by modifying a large car without leaving any trace. Let alone her, even the original person saw this kind of mobile team for the first time. The backstage is really messy, all kinds of props and costumes are being put in place, and many people have already started to put on makeup. As we all know, makeup is difficult to apply, and the head and face are even more complicated. It is normal to spend an hour trying to do it. She used to give orders an hour in advance when ordering a play in the palace, leaving time for the actors to put on their makeup and set up. However, even so, the other party still tried their best to make a relatively quiet and clean space for them. Zhao Hongsheng walked in on his heels, sat on an empty stool, and asked with great interest, "Tell me, what show are you planning to perform?" As the words fell, silence spread. Suyin was the first to reply, "Let me sing an old song from the last century, one that all the uncles and aunts in the village have heard. If you want an accompaniment, can you find a director?" Zhao Hongsheng patted his chest and said, "Take care of me." "What about you?" Zhang Kaiwen directly gave him a mask of pain. "How about I perform a super hand speed game?" Zhao Hongsheng responded with a cold face, "Reject." Zhang Kaiwen's shoulders slumped. "Oh." Lin Suifei looked at him and then at director Zhao. "I remember you can also dance in Kaiwen." "Know a little. I happen to know how to do jazz dance, how about we collaborate?" Her jazz dance is only at an entry-level level. It's almost impossible to perform on stage alone, but it would be much better if two people collaborate. Zhang Kaiwen said with an indifferent expression, "That's okay." Lin Suifei smiled at him, "Then let's just say it." Shiman glanced at Zhang Lingzi, who was sitting quietly and playing with a prop knife. "I have filmed a movie before, and the role I played happened to be a singer. I also learned some Huangmei opera at the time, so I might as well go on stage today to show off my ugly performance." Bar. Zhang Lingzi noticed director Zhao's gaze on her and silently put the prop sword back in her hand. "I also have a show." "What program?" "Keep it secret for the time being." Zhao Hongsheng. He was speechless for a moment. "Anyway, this is the end of the show, so don't let me down." "I promise not." Zhao Hongsheng took a deep look at Zhang Lingzi, who was promising him, and then turned and left. He also has to be busy with preparations and promote the program of his guests with the villagers. Suyin's song only requires accompaniment, and the pas de deux performed by Lin Suifei and Zhang Kaiwen only needs to be practiced in advance to facilitate interaction on stage. Shiman's program requires the help of Tan Jiaban. A few of them began to go about their own business. Shiman got up and walked out. She noticed the footsteps coming behind her. When she turned around, she saw that Zhang Lingzi was following her in the same direction. "Xiao 11, what are you doing?" "I'm also asking team leader Tan for help." Since it was work, Zhang Lingzi never thought of doing it half-heartedly. But the original person really has no talent to speak of, and if she thinks about it carefully, she doesn't have any talent that can be shown on the stage. Then we have to find another way. The reason why she said she wanted to keep it secret just now was because she didn't know what name to give to the program she was thinking of. Leader 10 suddenly received two people asking for help. After hearing that Shiman needed to borrow costumes, headgear, and music, he breathed a sigh of relief and said that he could cooperate with them, and immediately called someone to help. But after he continued to listen to Zhang Lingzi's needs, there was a hint of embarrassment on his face. Teacher Zhang, although the weapons and props in my troop are all unedged, they are not light. It is common for them to be accidentally thrown and get punctured. Even though there are only martial arts students in my troop, it works, but others don't touch it very much. I really don't dare to break this rule. Having been politely rejected at the beginning, Zhang Lingzi looked at the troubled expression of Team Leader 10, pondered for a moment, and suddenly reached out and picked up a wooden stick that was almost as thick as her wrist. Since the person who is in charge does not believe that she can protect herself, she can only use some real skills to convince the other party. Wooden sticks were used as spears and danced with great vigor. As a class leader, you can tell whether you have real abilities or not within a few glances. After Zhang Lingzi pulled out a gunflower with a wooden stick, Team Leader 10 even couldn't help but clapped his hands and shouted hello. When the stick was put back into place, he came back to his senses, with a bit of amazement still on his face. I didn't expect Teacher Zhang to have such an ability. He is a wooden material. It's a pity that the other party is a star, but he has a much brighter future than his little troop counterpart. Suppressing his regret, he just made a decision. It seems that Teacher Zhang has a foundation. I can borrow this prop gun, but to be on the safe side, I still have to sign a disclaimer with Teacher Zhang. If an accident happens accidentally, his small troop cannot bear such a big responsibility. Should. The most difficult part is to borrow props, and the rest will be much easier. Put on makeup and costumes, and communicate with the music team in advance about the music that will be played later. All that is left is to wait for the show to start. Shiman put on her makeup and costume and got up to join the other guests. As soon as she came out, she saw a figure in a white robe embroidered with fish and dragon walking towards her, holding a spear in his hand. Looking up, Shiman was really stunned when she saw the face that looked particularly heroic with only eyebrows and lip gloss. Zhang Lingzi. It's me, Teacher Shi. What you are all about, and this fancy gun. Performance needs it. As for the content, Teacher Shi will be able to see it later. Shiman. She really is, I never expected it. The pretty girl transforms into a heroic major general. Does she only need to put on her eyebrows? End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 19. Chapter 19. It's the sister who took the photo yesterday. Of course Shiman knows that it mainly depends on the person's own aura. No matter how well drawn the eyebrows are, they are just embellishments. But she really didn't expect that Zhang Lingzi's temperament would change so much. It is not an exaggeration to say that they are completely different. The appearance is amazing. She said this with sincerity. Zhang Lingzi also looked at Shiman's appearance carefully. Teacher Shi gave Meng Junren's charm a very high score. These words shocked Shiman again. She subconsciously looked down at her costume. Do you know that I am playing Meng Junren this time? You can tell from my clothes and my face. This role is very classic. I'm looking forward to Teacher Shi's performance in the future. Shiman couldn't help but smile, and hearing these words made people feel very comfortable. She looked at the little general in white robe in front of her, took a breath, and said slowly, I'm looking forward to it too. I have to say, the white robe costume and the long gun raised even her expectations to the fullest. When we returned to the temporary rest room, because Shimin had said before that she could sing a piece of Huangmei opera, no one was too surprised to see her appearance. On the other hand, as soon as Zhang Lingzi entered the door, not to mention Lin Suifei and Zhang Kaiwen, they were immediately stunned. Even Su Yin, who had always behaved very steadily, couldn't help but widen his eyes. "Zioxi, what are you?" Zhang Lingzi nodded towards her and replied, "I will need it for the performance later." Su Yin, "Absolutely. I never realized that this girl is so malleable before." Zhang Kaiwen recovered from the shock, took 2 steps closer, and gently touched the red tassel on the flower gun in Zhang Lingzi's hand, with a little regret in his eyes. Why didn't he think of borrowing the props from the Tan family class for a performance just now? This appearance, this fancy gun, even if he just stood there without doing anything, he was so handsome, wasn't he? Lin Suifei was quite confident in her and Zhang Kaiwen's pas de deux performance, but now, she felt uncertain again. I even wanted to ask Zhang Lingzi loudly, "Why don't you act according to common sense?" Asterisk. There are very few entertainment activities in the village. It is rare to have a performance in the countryside, so everyone's enthusiasm is naturally very high. So before it got dark, a group of villagers finished their dinner early, carrying their own small horses and small benches, rushing to occupy a seat in front of the newly built stage. There were also many people who took the opportunity to set up stalls and sell some snacks such as candied Haws marshmallows that children like to eat. After a while, the front became so busy that you could hear it in the background. Zhao Hongsheng clapped his hands after he came in. "The folks from outside have almost arrived. How are you preparing here?" After receiving a positive reply, he grinned and said, "Okay, I will guest host again later." "Has the order of appearance been decided?" "What we discussed is based on age," Shimin replied. "First there will be Kaiwen and Shuefei's opening dance, then Xiao 11's program, then Su Yin's solo, and finally I will be the finale." When it came to Xiao 11's show, Shiman paused for a moment. Zhao Hongsheng naturally saw Zhang Lingzi's costume and the flower gun standing beside him. Although he was amazed, he couldn't help but remind him, "Can you don't show off?" Zhang Lingzi smiled at him, with a clear look on her face, "If it was just to show off, Team Leader 10 wouldn't lend me his spear." Zhao Hongsheng thought about it, and then nodded, "That's good. Kaiwen and Suifei will wait first. I'll go out when I call you." When Zhao Hongsheng ran to the stage with a microphone and spoke to the villagers, Zhang Kaiwen and Lin Suifei heard their names, looked at each other, took a deep breath and walked towards the stage. It is worth saying that today's occasion is also a new experience for both of them. The stage was a borrowed opera stage, and the audience was not their fans, but a group of adults and children playing wildly with candied Haws and marshmallows. The moment the intense music sounded, the audience fell silent. The adults and aunts squinted their presbyopic eyes and looked towards the stage, and saw the figures of 2 young people jumping up and down. Many people looked at it with blank faces. What kind of show is this? I just heard from the director what street dance is called. Dancing on the street. That's probably what it means. I don't understand the old woman very well. To be honest, I don't understand either, but seeing as these 2 beautiful dolls are dancing so hard, I'd better give them a round of applause later. A fast-paced dance ended, and the 2 took a curtain call, sweating profusely. However, they heard some scattered and perfunctory applause from the audience. If she hadn't noticed that the camera was still there, Lin Suifei almost couldn't laugh. I could only console myself silently in my heart. It wasn't that she didn't dance well, but that the old men and women in the audience couldn't appreciate their novel dance. The second program follows immediately. Before anyone could reach the stage, the band nearby sounded a burst of passionate gongs and drums. The old man, who was somewhat deaf, couldn't help but get excited. When he saw the figure in white robes holding a flower gun appearing on the stage, he suddenly became excited. They don't understand much about the hip-hop dance in the front, but they are familiar with the appearance of this little martial artist. Is this going to be a show of tricks? Actually, Zhang Lingzi doesn't know how to juggle guns in opera, but as long as she can juggle weapons like spears, she can still juggle them on stage. White robes fluttered, flowers and spears twirled, and the flowing movements were matched with the passionate drum beats. Before the performance was over, there were already continuous cheers from the audience. The old people naturally praised the performance that they could enjoy. Backstage, Ximen, Suyin, and Zhang Kaiwen were also watching Zhang Lingzi's performance behind the curtain. Lin Suifei stood behind the three of them, feeling very uncomfortable listening to the applause from the audience outside. She never expected Zhang Lingzi to have such an ability. The spear was taller than anyone else. Although the tip of the spear was blunt, it still hurt a lot if accidentally poked. How could Zhang Lingzi have the courage to move so fast? But the audience's reaction proved everything. Zhang Lingzi's performance was more popular than her and Zhang Kaiwen's pas de deux. This Zhang Lingzi will really surprise director Zhao Shiman, sighed in a low voice and turned to look at Suyin, who was standing beside her. With her performing in front of you, are you feeling any pressure? Suyin was silent for a moment, and finally nodded. To be honest, it's a bit. I have a bit too. It seems I will take it more seriously later. They two seniors cannot lose to one junior. In a corner of the audience area, the little boy still held a bunch of candied haws in his hand that he had not eaten yet. He pointed to the stage and shouted to the elders sitting next to him as if he had discovered a new world, "Grandpa, she is the sister who took pictures of us yesterday." The old man was looking at the stage with squinted eyes. He nodded and hummed slightly when he heard the words, but he didn't look as lively as the others around him. Instead, he frowned slightly, as if he was thinking about some difficult problem. Logically speaking, it shouldn't be done with such a weak body and bones. It's difficult to lift the spear, so how can it be played like a tiger? He is considered a semi-experienced person. He used to be able to wield a knife and a gun when he was young, but now he is unable to do so and can only practice Tai Chi, which is more relaxing. Even though this girl is young, she is actually not even as strong as an old man like him. It made him want to check this girl's pulse. After practicing medicine all his life, could it be possible that he really made a mistake this time? End of this chapter. Her Majesty the Queen has become a god in the entertainment industry. Author, Press 11. Chapter 20. Chapter 20, Dual Personality. Amidst the audience shouting one more, Zhang Lingzi took a comm call and returned to the backstage unhurriedly. Zhao Hongsheng glanced at her as he hurried to the stage with the microphone. Since the old people and children in the audience all like to watch it, it's okay to stay a little longer. I don't know how to seize such a good opportunity. Zhang Lingzi does not know that if she stays on stage for a while, she will get more shots, but there is a very cruel reality. Her body's physical strength is already close to the limit. Even the previous performance was able to persist because of the use of a lot of skills. Otherwise, based on her own physical strength, this performance would have been good for even 1 minute. So amazing. Ximen looked at Zhang Lingzi, who came back and praised her without hesitation. Just now, Zhang Kaiwen and Lin Suifei came back from their performance. Even though the audience didn't respond well, she still praised them. You can never favor one over another. It's just that this compliment is obviously more sincere than the previous one. She really felt that Zhang Lingzi's performance was very powerful and bold. Lin Suifei heard it and gritted her teeth silently while maintaining a smile. Zhang Kaiwen was the most rude and didn't hear the difference between the two compliments. After giving Zhang Lingzi a thumbs up, he took the flower gun diligently. I'll help you return the property to its original owner. By the way, I also danced a few times secretly. It just so happened that Zhang Lingzi didn't want to move at the moment, so she waved her hand to indicate that he could help himself. Lin Suifei looked at Zhang Kaiwen, who was as happy as a silly roe deer after getting the flower gun. She simply couldn't stand it. With Zhang Lingzi's performance just now, who at the scene still remembers their previous dance performance? In the end, she is the only one who cares about love. Su Yinmin, who was still preparing to go on stage, noticed that Zhang Lingzi didn't look well. When she came to him, she subconsciously reached out to help her. Are you feeling uncomfortable somewhere? It's just that I'm a little exhausted. Thank you, Teacher Su, for your concern. Then sit down and have a good rest, I'm going to go on stage. Zhang Kaiwen, who originally wanted to ask how to pull off a beautiful gunflower, also stopped silently when he heard this. Lin Suifei pretended to glance over casually and said in her heart, you deserve it for showing off. Lu Zhengzheng looked distressed and worried outside the camera. She was so surprised and excited about her artist's performance on stage just now, and now she is so worried. But the recording wasn't over yet. She wanted to go over and give a water cup to Sister Zixi to drink from, but she was afraid of accidentally getting into the camera and making other guests dissatisfied. Don't think she hasn't noticed that Lin Suifei always dislikes her sister Zixi. For a moment, I was as anxious as an ant. Give it to me. Raising his head to meet Shimon's looking eyes, Lu Zhengzheng hurriedly handed over the water glass with a grateful look on his face. Thank you, Teacher Shi, thank you, Teacher Shi. You're welcome. Shimon smiled and nodded. Today, only Zhang Lingzi could tell that she was playing Meng Junren. She was willing to help and show her attentiveness in front of the camera. After taking a few sips of sweet warm water with honey added, Zhang Lingzi breathed a sigh of relief, raised her hand and made an okay gesture to Lu Zhengzheng, taking a rest while listening to the singing coming from the stage in front. She didn't quite understand the lyrics, but it was undeniable that they sounded pretty good. When the applause started, Su Yin took the curtain call and returned to the backstage. After accepting everyone's praise, she smiled and waved her hands. I haven't sung this old song for a long time. Fortunately, I didn't forget the lyrics just now. Lin Suifei hurriedly followed up with the compliment, Teacher Su was a classic as soon as he opened his mouth. I was fascinated by it just now. After saying this, she glanced at Zhang Lingzi, who was leaning on the dressing table with her eyes closed, as if unintentionally another one fell asleep listening to it. Comparison is not enough to judge whether one is superior or inferior. It's a pity that Su Yin just pretended not to notice her hint and just waved his hand. If you praise me again, I'm going to drift off. After saying that, he glanced at Zhang Lingzi, who had just opened his eyes and looked over. How are you resting, Zioxi, did you order it? Although Zhang Lingzi closed her eyes to rest, it was impossible to really fall asleep on such an occasion. Lin Suifei's little thoughts were clearly visible to her, but she couldn't even muster the interest to deal with this part. Much better I just listened to Teacher Su's song and I feel that the fatigue in my body has been reduced a lot. Haha, it seems that my song has a lot of uses. Good singing can always heal the body and mind, and it's even more rare to hear Teacher Su's live original music. This was the first time Su Yin felt that Zhang Lingzi's words could make her feel happy, and she laughed several times in a short time. Looking at Lin Suifei, who couldn't say anything, she said. She looked towards Zhang Lingzi in surprise. This girl didn't talk much in the past 2 days. She thought she was trying to stick to her words. When did she become so good at talking? Even though Shimon has the highest status among the guests, Su Yin is actually the one who is least accessible. This person's career lives up to the name Su Yin. He relies on a good voice to dominate the singing world. Even though his reputation has declined in recent years due to not many works, he is still a senior figure who needs to be respected in the singing world. Even though she had been flattering her for so long, she had never seen Su Yin smile so close to her. Unexpectedly, when she saw this, she immediately met Zhang Lingzi's eyes. Those eyes were calm with a hint of innate coldness. Lin Suifei told herself in her heart that she must not show any cowardice, but the next second, she still couldn't help but look away in embarrassment. Zhang Lingzi, you are so good. It wasn't until the melodious singing of Huang Mei operas sounded on the stage in front that Lin Suifei recovered from her annoyance. While listening, she silently recited in her mind what Brother Huang had said to her before. She can no longer be influenced by Zhang Lingzi from time to time. Fortunately, the recording of this program will end soon. Thinking of this, she felt a little more relaxed. Seeing Lin Suifei take the lead in looking away, Zhang Lingzi confirmed once again that there was no need for her to trust this girl at all, and she was not even qualified to be on her blacklist. Shimon's finale performance also received a burst of continuous applause. Zhang Lingzi hadn't listened to Huang Mei opera for a long time. She squinted her eyes and listened to the entire episode quietly, not paying any attention to Lin Suifei, who was still fuming alone. When Shiman's curtain call came, everyone who participated in the performance returned to the stage and together with director Zhao thanked the folks in the audience for their warm hospitality over the past few days. Backstage, Zhang Lingzi and Shiman still had to remove their makeup and change clothes. Fortunately, the camera was turned off, and Lu Zhengzheng Ding ran over to help. Sister Zixi, wait a minute, I'll take 2 photos and then you can change them. Zhang Lingzi had no choice but to let her go, posing and being patted by Lu Zhengzheng. You didn't mean to take 2 pictures. Take more photos and choose the 2 best ones when the time comes. Fine. Shiman was sitting in front of the dressing table and was being helped by people from Tan's class to remove the makeup on her head. She saw in the mirror that Zhang Lingzi was cooperating with the assistant to take the photo even though she was tired, and she couldn't help but raise her eyebrows. She still remembered that before Zhang Lingzi had no accident, the assistant accidentally broke something or something. After finishing the recording for the day, she was scolded by Zhang Lingzi and made him cry. Looking at the scene now, it feels quite magical. As she watched, a thought suddenly flashed through her mind: could this Zhang Lingzi have a dual personality? This time after the accident, he changed into a different personality when he came back. End of this chapter.